science-based principle. We try to do that. And we try to have different people that we try to connect from Europe or for outside Europe. And some of them, they are here. Okay, thank you very much for attention. And we hope to do that finally. And we try to escape on this, fence that still exists between our countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marcel. That was a very interesting presentation of yours. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mrs. Daria Hulyakovic. I hope I pronounced it well. She has come all the way from Ukraine, from the Yuri Fedkovich University, which is a beautiful building I have visited, and I hope all of you at one point will be also able to visit it. So I would ask you to please make your presentation. You have your microphone there.
First of all, thank you, organizers, and our Romanian colleagues for inviting us for this very important opportunity to speak for our people, for our peaceful people. So why is it really important now for us? Because, first of all, it's already 820 days of full-scale war in Ukraine. What does it mean for us? A part of daily losing our best people, we are losing our environment. Environment that defined us and make us happy and peaceful people. How does these consequences look like? You probably know a lot of these numbers, but in the sense of environmental protection and safe environment, more than 30% of forests are damaged or have been occupied or destructed to varying degrees. 80% of land is occupied or damaged. Even more, 30% of protected areas are in the active combat zone or even under occupation. And above all that, over 1 million of hectares is contaminated and require mine clearance. So what does it bring to environmental protection in Ukraine? Especially in protected areas of international significance. Out of 8 that we have in Ukraine, 6 are now or either under risk or out of control, Ukrainian control. And behind of that, 2 transboundary parks. By the way, we have already this experience of establishing transboundary parks, but 2 of them, which are on the border with Russia and Belarus, of course, they are at threat of further functioning. What does it mean for us also in these times? That means that we have new challenges for environmental protection that will make us in alignment with European Union. We have also problem with people and nature. More than 18 million of people are displaced, meaning that we have some poles in people living areas. That means also that a lot of landscapes are destructed. Over 900,000 of tons of waste from destroyed equipment are nowadays on the territory of Ukraine. And by this, I want also to mention people who bring this environment in this best way. I want to mention my nice colleague, environmentalist, professor from Melitopol, who was kidnapped in December 2022, and we still don't have any connection with him. So we hope that this collaboration will also save people. What are the challenges for the national parks that we are talking today? Even being in comparison with the other part of Ukraine in quite safe zone, we still face a lot of challenges. What does it mean? First of all, because of war, we should have modified the laws about the frontier zone. To make it more safer, we made it wider. So that puts another pressure for migration, for eco corridors. Another issue is, of course, financing. Parks are very limited in financing, of course, because there are other issues too. We have also, from one side, we have lost a lot of tourism, but on the other side, only the Western Ukraine is now half open for tourists in the Ukrainian capacities. The people who also need some regeneration from who are displaced. So some resorts are still functioning them. So that is like discussion point here. We have also problems with human potential, human resources that are working in the environment protection, who are also put it to risks. And of course, we have problems with the male staff who is very needed in the remote areas in the park. But what does it mean for us also? A lot of talks were dedicated to this, that we, despite all of that, we should see opportunity in that. We should see like the opportunity for our revival, recovery, or even modernizing Ukraine. So what we are doing, first of all, it's almost here that our president has established together with his team the peace formula. And one of the very important issues in that is point 8, which is dedicated to ecological safety. What does it mean? That together with colleagues from around the world, and Romanians especially were very active there, we generated the document as environmental compact, where we have more than 50 recommendations, the plan how we can recover, how we can put our environmental in the better, safer situation. So a big focus there is green recovery, which can't be seen apart from other issues that were discussed already today. Of course, even because of war, or maybe despite of war, we are doing a big steps toward European integration. That means that already in this year we have developed several documents, several potential laws which will be alignment with the European legislation base. So that means that we have the work plan for our Verkhovna Rada, and we also have the plan for the cabinet minister, which in sense of environmental protection means that we are developing the laws about climate legislation, we are developing the law about prevention of industrial pollution. We are also implementing or even continuing to implement the Emerald network in Ukraine. The big issue is also about the forest, because of course our park will also have the great focus on forest ecosystems which we'll have to preserve. And of course, because of this 30%, we will have much higher pressure on all the other forests in the Western Ukraine, especially in capacities. And because of that, we had a lot of initiatives and even Forum on Forest Recovery in Ukraine. We have a good collaboration with several European organizations and funds, how to be closer to nature in forestry. And now I want to move to the parks that we are actually meant to that are meant to be included in the future peace park. First of one of this is one of the most oldest in the area, VIIIc National Park, and I want to stress what they are already doing despite all these obstacles. Actually, during the year that we already discussed this idea, the colleagues which are actually present today, and I'm thankful to them, they are looking for expanding the area to reach the border, to make this eco corridor much bigger, and there is a big potential for that. We already have some Bukovinian eco corridors that connect in Romanian protected areas, for which the area is already designated. Because of these limited financial issues, we are also trying to state on functioning due to the Frankfurt Zoological Society, which is in charge of a lot of parks in the western Ukraine. So that makes us still, as the park, alive. And this park, especially Vyzhnitsky, is still one of the most visited park in the region, with still developing recreation. Another park, it's the most remote park. This park actually already has the common border with Romania for almost 14 kilometers. And even in this time, or maybe because of this time, we are trying to push forward this initiative with infrastructure. So we are about to open another transboundary checkpoint, which will also contribute to our idea. We are also, this park is also seeing the perspective in development, different kind of recreation, and about the preserving old growths and natural forests, which are still very good preserved there because of their remotedness. So why it is important for, in that sense, for us to make this peace park? Seeing all these efforts that parks in the war times are still trying to do, we think that this park will be the model for peaceful people in nature. So it will be the model that we still can live, can develop in a peaceful manner. So it will encompass for us diversity issues, equality issues, inclusions. I mean that the area is very diverse, with more than 5 ethnic groups. We have really unique Highlander community, Hutsul, that live on both sides of the border. We have really remote villages that are unfortunately at the state of disappearance. We are also aiming at overcoming these physical barriers, but I think it's more than physical barriers. This 14 kilometers of fence is also the fence of this connection between people who knows common history and who can actually live and develop together. So we hope for sustainable development for this area, because it's more than 5 territorial communities, and it's over 40,000 people who are hoping to stay and to work for Ukraine. So in the long run, despite that it's all challenges, I want to say that it's also 1820 days of enormous support for Ukraine. And not only made by Ukrainian, but also made by our colleagues, by our partners. So thank you.
Thank you, Daria. That was a wonderful presentation and very insightful. Our next speaker is from Romania, Raluca Nicolae, who is from Agent Green, Romania. Thank you.
Is this working? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Good day. I'm glad to be here. My name is Raluca Nicolae, and I'm representing Agent Green, a non-governmental organization from Romania. Thank you very much for inviting us and for giving us the opportunity to come here and to present our initiative of National Peace Park. I will say a few words about our organization. Maybe you already know about us, but just in a few words, Agent Green is an environmental organization that works to protect primary and old-growth forest in Romania, also to conserve and protect the environment in general. And when the war started in 2022, We blocked our activity on in the environment because we were so shocked of what happened in February, and we started to help the Ukrainian people at borders. And we mobilized all our volunteers and everybody that could come with us at the border of Ukraine to help people, animals, were there with us, and this is how the story began with this initiative. When we went there and we saw desperate women and crying children and lost animals, it was so shocking for us, and we started to find a solution. And this is how our idea with creating this National Peace Park started in February 2022. Then we got our partner from Suceava, Marcel Mundrescu, and he was so enthusiastic also about the idea. We discussed also with the Ukrainian people, with the Chernomytsky National Park, Vyzhny National Parks, and we started to collaborate with them, and I'm so glad that the idea developed so well, and we are here in Bucharest to discuss with so many people and present our idea. Yeah, the project is outstanding from my point of view. It's very important because this is about an environmental diplomacy. We need this national peace park to be created. It's important, very important for the Ukrainian people, but also for the Romanian people, just to make the connection stronger and to make the peace happen much sooner than we think, you know, because you told us, Daria, about that 820 days. I hope that peace will come soon, and we will talk about how to protect the environment, how to conserve biodiversity, and not how to kill people and to develop war and so on. Yeah, so this is a very important step for our authorities, local authorities and international authorities, and in Romania and also in Ukraine, to promote and support this idea of creating the National Peace Park. We will continue with some new activities at the border of Romania with Ukraine. We want to organize a concert with classic music, and the maestro Gabriel Bebeșelea will be the director that will be there and will help us organize this. But we also need financial support to create this beautiful event. So anybody that has any suggestion, any support idea, can contact us at Agent Green and tell us how can this activity could be supported. We also need some ambassadors that want to join this initiative. If you want to become an ambassador, just write us an email, and we can collaborate and see how we can do this beautiful initiative together. Thank you so much, and have a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you, Raluca. Our next guest is Mr. Karl Bruch. He is the Director of International Programs at the Environmental Law Institute, and he's going to speak about the parks and politics. So, Karl, can you hear us? Hello? Karl, are you there? Okay, so in that case, we'll ask Mr. Bill Keaton to have his presentation, and we'll get back to Karl later because we are not able to contact him. Bill, are you there? Can we have your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Right, now I can try sharing my presentation from here, or perhaps you have it loaded there already. Do you have it loaded?
Yes, we have it here. So,
Okay, great. If you could start that, that would be fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Keaton. I'm a professor of forest ecology and forestry at the University of Vermont, which is located in the northeastern United States. And I've been involved with research in the Carpathian region, including Romania, for almost 20 years now. I'm on the Science Advisory Board for Science for the Carpathians, and have also worked closely with the Carpathian Convention Secretariat in Vienna on a number of initiatives, including a recent climate vulnerability assessment focused on the forest sector in the Carpathians. So I would like to share with you some of my perspective on this topic, and particularly perhaps the larger context that the Peace Park proposal, or the Transboundary Protected Areas proposal that Dr. Mudrescu mentioned, is embedded within. So the larger European and perhaps even global context. So as that first slide shows, we're talking about this border region between Romania and Ukraine, in the Bukovina region, that actually is part of a larger network of existing protected areas of various sorts, such as the Maramuresh landscape, but also the Carpathian Biosphere Reserve and a number of protected area units on the Ukrainian side. So really we're talking about this idea of a network of protected areas. And I want to impress upon you that these have very significant value, not just for borderland security issues, but which they do, but also for regional biodiversity conservation and climate mitigation and flood control and a whole variety of critical services that protected areas networks like this provide. Okay, if we could go to the next slide, please. Right, so I just will start with the simple point that this is not the first transboundary protected areas initiative in the region. As Daria mentioned, there's a successful track record of protected areas like this, including the trilateral East Carpathian Biosphere Reserve connecting Ukraine, Poland, and Slovakia. There are others, of course, in the region that have been invaluable in past decades for conserving critical landscapes, harboring rare, threatened, and endangered species, such as large vertebrates, but also more than 200 species of endemic plants that are found only in this region of the world. And then more recently, there has been a lot of interest in this borderland region between Romania and Ukraine. Today, we're talking about Bukovina and the Peace Park idea there, but a number of years ago, I was part of an initiative led by the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, focusing a little further west in the Tisa River corridor and some of the other critical areas there that are also seen as particularly important for flood control, for aquatic species, and for a whole variety of different environmental values. So this landscape that we're talking about, the point here is that this has received attention for many years and is recognized very broadly throughout Europe, but also the world, as having significant values. If we go to the next slide, please. And then we also need to keep in mind the context of the Carpathian Convention. Of course, Romania is signatory to this convention, as are all 6 Carpathian nations plus Austria. And the convention has adopted very interesting protocol around forests, pertaining both to the sustainable management of forests, so active sustainable management for wood products and other services, but also around the critical role of conservation. And the forest protocol that Romania and all Carpathian countries have committed to specifically focuses on the protection of what we can call virgin or primary or old growth forests, And so that's something I'm going to focus in on for the rest of this talk, the value of peace parks and transboundary protected areas like this for conserving old forests. But also, if we're thinking about entire landscapes and the mosaic that a landscape would include, there's a critical role for restoration and for sustainable forestry practices and for carbon forestry and all the various things that we can do to enhance the role of forests as natural climate solutions, sequestering carbon and then storing carbon and helping to mitigate climate change in that way. Okay, if we can continue on the next slide, please. Yes, and so that brings me to the climate vulnerability assessment that I mentioned. This is a project that I led, working very closely with the Secretariat in Vienna. We recently completed the vulnerability assessment, and I presented this at the COP7 meeting in Belgrade last fall. And of course, the vulnerability assessment looked at many, many things, many risks facing forest ecosystems and communities in the Carpathian region, such as disturbances and drought and floods and other climate-related risks. And we had many recommendations that came out of this report. And I should mention, by the way, that everything in this report was generated by stakeholders in the region. This was not really a scientific exercise using geospatial techniques or modeling. It was entirely based on surveys of stakeholders in the region, primarily including ministry officials, university scientists, and other focal experts in Romania and the other countries. So these recommendations are coming directly from stakeholders in the region, and included within them are these recommendations around the critical role of protected areas. So if I can look at this more closely. So the importance of forest restoration and reforestation, which of course protected areas provide. The importance of protecting and conserving natural forests within core protected areas on these landscapes. The role that those play in facilitating species migrations and shifts that we can expect into the future with climate change. And then, of course, the role that protected areas play in storing carbon and fighting climate change that way. So these were major recommendations coming from the region and then presented in the vulnerability assessment, which were then endorsed and adopted at the Conference of the Parties meeting in Belgrade. Okay, if we could continue on, next slide, please. I'll just continue while that's loading. Okay, so there's also this broader and yet focused interest in old forests specifically. If we could have the next slide, please, that would be helpful. I'm not seeing it yet. So there's been a lot of work throughout Europe inventorying and mapping old forests and what we might call primary or never cleared forests. And I'm hoping the next slide will load because it has a map that shows the old forest inventory for Europe. And on this map, you will see that there is a high concentration of old and primary forests in the Bukovina region and the Maramuresh landscape, and also on the Ukrainian side in the Carpathian Biosphere Reserve landscape. And actually, I'm wondering if somebody could tell me what's going on with the presentation. Is that not working? There we go. And then one more click, please. One more. Great, thank you. So if you focus your eye in on northern Romania, you see that this is now recognized as having a particularly important concentration of these old and primary forest stands, which are of now global recognition for their biodiversity value and also their carbon storage potential. Next slide, please. As Marcel mentioned, there's also concern, however, because these forests remain under risk. There have been quite a number of studies looking at the continued liquidation of these. Yes, illegal harvesting is part of it, but they're under threat from many different sources, including disturbances and climate and a whole variety of stresses. So protected areas are now critical in trying to shore up the conservation of the old forests in this region. This map is just from a study I was involved in, mapping disturbances in virgin forests using Landsat data, so remotely using satellite technology. So we know they're under threat. We know we continue to lose these old forests in this region. Next slide, please. Yes, and now let's just talk a little bit about their carbon value, because I've hinted at this a couple of times now, that if we can create additional protected areas, particularly these important transboundary protected areas, we can conserve these old forests that are under threat, and in so doing, we can provide additional natural climate solutions. Now, if you look at the panel in the upper right-hand corner, what this is showing you is that some of these European old forests, beech, spruce fir, but also oak, Scots pine, can have exceptionally high carbon storage value. So the bar on the right compares the carbon storage in old forests compared to middle-aged forests, which is the bar on the left. And you see that Europe actually ranks quite highly compared to many other regions of the world. This is some of my own research I'm presenting here. Next slide, please. And so let's just break this out a little bit further. Let's look at the carbon storage in these Carpathian forests specifically, and I can present data from Ukraine. So you see carbon storage in some of the other major old growth forest systems from around the world, Pacific Northwest, Tierra del Fuego, some of the other famous regions, and these bars compare carbon storage in old forests with mature forests. And now if we go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, so there you see the carbon storage in Ukrainian old growth forests flashing up there. And you see that old forests in this region actually rank quite highly, even above the carbon storage in some of the other major systems globally. So the point here, in short, is that old forests in this region have exceptional carbon storage value. This plays an important role fighting climate change. And if we can protect them, perhaps using international carbon financing through carbon markets, we might additionally generate revenue that would help sustain forest landscapes and revitalize local communities. Of course, we have to do that very carefully. And of course, we all know that there's a lot of criticism of carbon markets these days. So we have to do that very carefully. But there is the potential there for economic benefits through carbon financing. We also know that conserving old forests this way as natural climate solutions has other major co-benefits for recreation, for wildlife habitats and biodiversity, for tourism and the local economic benefits that generates, but also critically, particularly in Romania, for flood control and flood resilience, and then also opportunities for forest products outside of those core strictly protected reserves. Okay, so many co-benefits associated with this kind of activity. And then the last slide. I'll just thank you for your attention, and I hope I've made the point that the Transboundary Peace Park Initiative in Bukovina is embedded within this larger context, both Carpathian-wide, if we think about the Carpathian Convention, European-wide, if we think about the continental interest around old forests, and then globally in terms of the recognition that this region is of exceptional value, high conservation value, and might even provide global benefits in terms of fighting climate change. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for your time and your presentation. We'll try to reach to Carl one more time and see if he is online. Carl, are you there? Oh.
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, great. And we can see you as well.
Thank you. Good. I'd like to speak briefly about two examples of environmental diplomacy from Latin America. Next slide, please. The first is a peace park in the Cordillera del Condor region between Ecuador and Peru. This region experienced territorial conflict and armed disputes since the 19th century. And peace talks between the governments of Peru and Ecuador began in 1995 with several environmental organizations, including an Ecuadorian NGO, Fundación Natura, and the international NGO Conservation International, promoting the inclusion of conservation as a key part of the peace-building process. In 1998, the presidents of the two countries resolved the conflict with the Brasilia Agreement, ending the longest-standing border dispute in the Americas. The agreement underscored the need to establish protected areas on both sides of the border. So basically, the agreement was, we don't agree on the border, so we're going to create protected areas and no one will develop the disputed region. And in this process, they agreed to promote socioeconomic and environmental cooperation in that region. A formal agreement was signed in 2002 by government representatives, as well as the Fundación Natura and Conservation International, to create a network of protected areas. This agreement called for the coordination between national environmental and diplomatic authorities, as well as the provision of technical support to indigenous peoples in both countries that lived in the area. These conservation efforts were not only contributing to the conservation of an extraordinarily rich biodiversity area that was shared by the countries, but also created an environment of trust to bring about a lasting peace in the region. The peace agreement officially established two protected zones governed by the same treaty. These ecological protection areas, or EPAs, included a 2,500 hectare El Condor in Ecuador, and in Peru, a 5,400 hectare ecological protection area. There was also a Santiago Comaina reserved area with a surface area of 1.6 million hectares. So these were pretty extensive areas. These actions created space for cooperation between the two countries that led to an initiative, the Peace and Bionational Conservation in the Cordillera del Condor project, which was financed by ITTO and included government agencies, indigenous communities, and NGOs. It was notable for four particular things. One, there was binational technical cooperation that included a group of Peruvian and Ecuadorian specialists, technical specialists, that jointly prepared proposals and designed and implemented the project. Second, this led to the establishment of bordering protected areas, so adjoining protected areas. Third, the indigenous territories were an important dimension. In Ecuador, there was an organization, Circumscripción Territorial Shuar Arutam, the CTSHA, that helped prepare a proposal to create an area of 230,000 hectares of indigenous territories named the Multiple Use Shuar Area. And in Peru, there was an alliance of institutions that provided technical assistance to help indigenous peoples secure clear title for their land, covering more than 100,000 hectares. And fourth, there was coordinated planning for protected area management between the two countries. So they developed the national protected area management plans, but then they also coordinated across borders. And I think that's a really good example of how Peace Park can actually be integral in the resolution of a territorial border dispute. The other example, next slide. It's very different, but it also is very important for biodiversity conservation. In Central America, there was a period of turmoil, especially in the 70s and 80s, guerrilla warfare and with Cold War overtones consuming El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. U.S. military ousted Panamanian strongmen, and only Costa Rica and Belize avoided serious internal instability and violent government repression during this time. Although none of these were formally international wars, the porous borders meant that there was a lot of linkage between these conflicts that led to regional instability. And this led to a series of negotiations that culminated in the Esquipulas II Accords in 1987, led by President Oscar Arias of Costa Rica. The treaty opened the doors for substantial international economic assistance and moved Central America from a conflict region to a post-conflict region. By 1992, all the civil wars had ended, except for the Guatemalan conflict, which persisted until 1996. During the same period, regional and international concern about environmental degradation grew. There was overexploitation of natural resources that was important for livelihood, economic development, and this was affecting forests, soils, fisheries, and biodiversity. This led to the creation of an institution called the Central American Commission on Environment and Development, or in Spanish, CCAD. That was established in 1989 by Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And this was notable for a number of activities. First of all, they developed common visions on forestry, environment and development, and other shared environmental interests in the region. Second, this led to cooperation around transboundary wildlife corridors throughout the region. Third, it led to the development of common negotiating positions on climate change and other international environmental diplomatic initiatives that was facilitating this. And then it also helped to harmonize environmental legislation in the region. All of this laid the groundwork for more broader political and economic integration, including the creation of the Central American Integration System, or CICA in Spanish. So I think fundamentally, this is an important example where environmental cooperation laid the foundation for continuing regional political and economic integration. And I'll stop there so that there's a little time at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl, for joining us. Thanks a lot. And our next speaker is Mr. Shamar Hajiev, and he has come all the way from Baku, Azerbaijan to be with us. So I would like to ask you to present. Thank you.
Do we have, yes. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. While talking about environmental protection, we should also focus on the use of energy resources because using fossil fuels is also again environment. So I will present my presentation about Azerbaijan's energy strategy, how a country rich with fossil fuels speed up green transition and various projects in the region. So we are switching from the Black Sea region to Caspian to the South Caucasus region. So here we see the new term for energy security. While talking about energy security, also we have to emphasize the role of the transit countries. Without the transit countries, it's almost impossible to ensure energy security. Azerbaijan's energy strategy, as I mentioned, we are rich with fossil fuels, oil and natural gas, and we are exporting these energy resources to global energy markets. But if you see here, also for Azerbaijan, it's the priority to increase the share of renewable energy sources and optimize the energy sector and provide reliable energy supply system. So the final here aspect of energy security is quite important for the country. The country signed important document with the European Union, and according to this document, we will strengthen our cooperation in the field of renewable energy and also energy efficiency. And as you know very well, energy efficiency and renewable energy are twin pillars of sustainable development. So if you need to reach sustainable development, you have to develop simultaneously renewable energy and energy efficiency. Here we see the important project signed between Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary, and Romania to export renewable-based electricity from the region to European energy markets. And this is very important for our region because it will be like the green corridor from the region, and Azerbaijan can in the future supply also electricity from the Central Asian countries to European markets. And I would emphasize that also Moldova and the Western Balkans and Ukraine can also use this electricity supplied from the region to European markets. According to Azerbaijan 2030 national priorities and social development, we will develop a clean environment, and actually country plans to be a green growth country. After the long-lasting war with neighboring country Armenia, now we are going we announced the Karabakh region as the green energy zones, and according to this concept, we will develop mainly renewable energy to supply the electricity need of this region. So this region will use only green energy for the future consumption, and we signed also Paris Agreement, and according to this agreement we plan to reduce green gas emissions by 30% by 2030, also to reach the renewable energy capacity 30% in energy mix. Here we see renewable energy capacity of the country. We have a huge opportunity both onshore and offshore capacity, and mainly we have wind, solar, bio and small hydro. And small hydro capacity we have mainly in Karabakh region, and wind, solar in different regions of the country. Hydro energy potential is, as I mentioned previously, is mainly in Karabakh region because 25% of country's internal water resources based in this region, and the main rivers, Tartar and Hakkari rivers, can support this potential. And another regions like region like Jabrail region close to the Araz River and also has capacity to develop renewable energy. And a few days ago we celebrated the opening of the Khodafari and Maiden Tawa electric junctions with Iran together. Here we see renewable energy in different regions. As you see, solar energy we have in Gubadli, Zangilan, Jabrail, Fizuli regions, wind energy in Kalbajar, Lachin, and hydro in Kalbajar, Lachin regions as well. As I mentioned previously, we announced these territories as the green energy zone, and the country signed important document with Japanese company TEPSCO to develop this concept because it's very well-known company and they have quite good experience in this field. And the main aim of this concept is utilization of clean energy potential, application of energy efficiency technologies and methods, and application of modern energy management approaches and tools. Another important agreements we signed with Masdar, BP and Aqua Power, and I would especially emphasize that we use foreign direct investment into renewable energy projects in the country. So these companies invest into renewable energy projects. Azerbaijan created such environment for renewable energy projects that well-known energy companies can now believe and invest to this sector. Here we see that these green energy projects will provide ample opportunities for the development of Azerbaijan as a green growth country and green energy producer and exporter of this energy to international markets, and it will bring, of course, both economic benefits and also social benefits for the country. COP29, and this year country will host this important international event, and we know that the COP event is the biggest international event to protect environment, to discuss environmental issues. And I would emphasize especially that this is also a platform for peace for us, because Eastern European countries, together with Armenia, backed Azerbaijan candidacy to host this important event. And we are going to discuss very important climate issues, and also to propose new topics during the COP29. Like the main topic, of course, will be the climate funding. As you know, during the last year Dubai COP28, the countries mainly discussed this issue, and as the country Azerbaijan proposed for oil producing countries to pay more in order to tackle global climate issues. And I think this is very important. Also, another question we can discuss, this is the environmental degradation after the war. This is the problem like the landmine contamination. It's huge problem for us. It's huge problem in Ukraine. It's everywhere the same. So we should focus on this important issue, how countries can help cooperate together in order to solve this issue. And what COP29 can bring to Azerbaijan? Actually, this year we announced the Green Solidarity Year in Azerbaijan, and it's important to measure, to demonstrate Azerbaijan's commitment to environmental protection and climate action. As I mentioned, we will discuss different issues, different questions during COP29. And COP29 will be a huge opportunity not only for Azerbaijan, but for the whole region. And we want to use this platform also to achieve peace with Armenia, to finally sign this durable peace agreement with our neighboring country. Also, this will speed up green transition not only in Azerbaijan but also in Central Asia. As you know, Central Asia is very rich with fossil fuels and minerals, and the Central Asian countries can use this opportunity to use green technology, innovation, and to establish a good connection with well-known green energy companies. And of course, in the future, Central Asian countries such as Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan can use Azerbaijan and the critical energy infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure, to export electricity, and it will be green energy hub in the region, between and the connection between Caspian and the Black Sea regions. And we believe that COP29 will speed up all these processes in the region. And the final slide, final considerations. We believe that diversification of supplies, both from the traditional fossils and the renewable energy, is very important for the long-term energy security. Without diversification of supplies and routes, it's almost impossible to achieve this energy security. And the Caspian region is quite important region for Europe, both from point of view natural gas and renewable energy. And speed up green transition in Azerbaijan and in the region, we can use this platform. And developing renewable energy in Azerbaijan will first of all help Azerbaijan to decrease the natural gas consumption domestically, which will allow us to save gas and use this for export, because we signed again with Europe agreement to reach 20 billion cubic meters annually by 2027, and I think this is good opportunity for Azerbaijan developing renewable energy to save enough gas and to use this gas for export. As we don't have much time, I tried to be very brief and to have the time for a Q&A session, because I believe that the most important and interesting part of all presentations is the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there is any questions from the audience for our speakers, let us know. Or if from our speakers they have questions with each other, you're welcome. Okay, so in that case, I think we would wrap up our session because we were already late, and I think we have another session after this. So I want to thank all our audience. I want to thank the speakers. I want to thank our speakers, Bill and Carl, who have joined us via VTC for participating in our forum. So I hope to see you next time, and thank you and have a good evening. Thank you.